This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up and welcome to QnA, the show where I take all your questions from YouTube and the internet and answer them here in video format. Make sure you're subscribed and notified so you can have a chance to ask a question on the community prompts if you want to do such a thing. This first question comes from B44, who says, how many 53-man spots are actually available going into training camp? Let's answer that question first before I get into the other one. How many 53-man spots are going to be available going into training camp? Let's look at it. Right now, the Browns look like they're going to carry at least 3 quarterbacks. Who those 3 quarterbacks are, a little bit up the grabs, right? I think there's a competition between DTR and Tyler Huntley. DTR is still working back from a hip injury, so we'll see if he factors into that conversation at third quarterback. Right now, it looks like it's Tyler Huntley. As far as running back goes, it's a question of semantics more than competition. You know that Jerome Ford is going to make the team. Donta Foreman is going to make the team. Nick Chubb is going to make the team. And that's probably going to be your 3 primary backs for the season. Maybe Nyheim Hines makes the team because he can kick return. Maybe he doesn't because they already have James Prochet. Outside of that, I don't really see any of those other running backs really competing for a spot. So I would say out of like 53, you're probably talking about like 7 spots up for competition. Maybe. It's not a lot of space on this 53-man roster is the point. The second part of your question, what are the chances that Moore earns an extension? It depends. Like, I think he's somebody who could get a modest extension. Like, if we're talking $8 to $10 million for a year for the next couple of years, and Elijah Moore gets you somewhere around like 600 to 700 yards, I think that's pretty doable. If not, then it's not that big of a loss. As far as the trade value for him, where you moved back to the 3rd round, picked up Cedric Tillman and I believe somebody else for him, you know, it wouldn't be a great trade. I don't think it would be a bad trade, though. It'd just be a kind of a zero-sum trade. Snyder says, I love Watson replacing Taki. He's talking about Nathaniel Watson, by the way. Hope Briggs can beat out Ika. What's your view on tight end 3? I'll be honest with you. Could care less who tight end 3 is. This team did not use tight end 3 very often last year, and that was even when they had somebody that they drafted in that role. I doubt they go to it that much this year. It doesn't seem like they really care who the 3rd tight end is going to be. When you talk about blocking packages, they're going to use extra linemen. They have tons of extra linemen. They got Jack Conklin. They really don't need to have a 3rd tight end. So I don't think that position is going to be a priority. And I don't really think it should, given the makeup of the roster, because right now you have an extra tackle and an extra guard if you're the Cleveland Browns. And that's big enough to fill whatever need you have at tight end 3. I don't think you need to sign somebody who's going to be a lesser blocker than both of those offensive linemen that you could use. So I think that they don't care who tight end 3 is, and I don't think there's going to be a tight end 3 long term on the roster. Like, maybe a guy gets activated for like a game or 2, but I don't think they really care. Mark Fears says, do you see us giving a contract extension to JOK, Greg Newsome, and MJ Emerson? If not, who do you think is the odd man out? JOK, yes, I see him getting an extension. Greg Newsome, no, I don't see him getting an extension. And MJ Emerson, yes, I do see him getting an extension. I think the reason why that's the way I would land on it is more due to talent than like salary concerns. JOK is not going to break the bank at the linebacker position. MJ Emerson is going to be expensive, but it's 2 years down the line. And then Greg Newsome is a year down the line. And again, would be not that expensive. I just don't think Greg Newsome is the kind of corner you give a big new contract to, because he does ultimately play the nickel for this team. While it's a valuable spot, it's not an expensive spot. I think somebody else would value him more as a boundary corner and pay him to be a boundary corner. That's going to be the best move for Greg in his future. So it doesn't seem like something that's going to line up for us. JOK, Martin Emerson, though, that makes sense. Next question comes from Corey, who says, what's the individual chances of Jamari Thrash, Michael Hall, and Zach Zinter being starters by year 2? Jamari Thrash, virtually zero chance of him becoming a starter in year 2. There's just too much for him to overcome. Like, he's not going to start over Amari Cooper. He's probably not going to start over Elijah Moore, and he's not going to start over Cedric Tillman, and he's not going to start over Jerry Jeudy. Not even in year 2, because they're going to want to give Cedric Tillman as many chances as possible. So no, I would say there's not really a good chance of him being a rotational player by year 2. Maybe, yes, definitely. But starter, yeah, I wouldn't put my eggs in that basket. Michael Hall being a starter, yeah, I think that's possible. I think that's very possible. And then Zach Zinter being a starter in his second year, I would put this at like 20%. I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked if it happened, if that makes sense. Thank you for the question. The next question comes from Magnus, who says, what is your favorite Browns uniform? I love the brown and orange. So the brown top, white face mask, orange pants. I think that's a classic look. And for the road, I like the white top, orange pants. I don't like the all white. I think the all white looks bad. I know why people like it. It looks like a clean look before the game starts, but once the game starts, it looks bad. I hate all brown. I hate when they wear the all brown joints. I don't like any iteration of them. I would guess the color rush is probably the most tolerable version of that. And, I might be on an island on this one, but I don't like the orange jerseys. I know everybody wants the Browns to add an orange jersey. I hate the orange jersey look. It just doesn't look like the Browns to me. Like, the Browns should not, I don't know, it just don't feel like the Browns when you see them in an orange jersey. And that's not to say that you can't come up with some unique and cool designs that would have a Cleveland Browns uniform in an orange jersey. Sure. And I'm not saying that orange shouldn't be a heavy part of what they do. One of the things I do like from the 2015 redesign is the orange numbers on the white jersey. I do think that would be a nice move if they could add it. But a whole orange jersey, I'm not a big fan. I think a lot of people like it because it's unique and different. And I don't know. I think the novelty wore off for me like a couple of years ago about the orange jersey. Like, once I actually saw the Browns wear an orange jersey, the novelty wore off, and I'm just good on it. That's not one that I banged the table on needing to come back. Kel Bell says, what kind of hilarious theory or theories are you seeing out there about for this solid Browns organization to have a sub 500 season? Let's comment more on those that need to be debunked. The issue I have isn't with people saying that the Browns are going to be under 500. If you have a good reason and you can explain it, I'm never going to get mad at somebody for having a take. It's when the explanations for a take are either reliant on just straight up imagined facts, lies, or like straight up misinformation or just no information at all. That's where I take an issue with it, right? I am not such a diehard that I can't stand to hear anything negative. I say things negative about this team all the time if they're true. But I do want the basis of the conversation to be in reality. And the issue I have with a lot of people who are predicting the Browns to be under 500, they're making assumptions that don't make sense if you actually pay attention to what has happened with the team. You know, I talk about this all the time, right? If you're going to assume that the Browns are going to have a harder time winning football games with Deshaun Watson than they did with all of the 5 quarterbacks that they had last year, you have to explain that take because there's nothing that supports that. Yes, you can be disappointed in Deshaun Watson's statistical output so far as a quarterback, but nothing of that data sample that he's put out there supports the idea that he makes it harder for the Cleveland Browns to win. There's actually a lot more information that suggests that his presence out there makes it easier for the Browns to win. Him being 500 in his first 6 games back versus Jacoby Brissett being under 500 in the same exact season, right? Him being 4-1 last year with a plus 63 or 64 point differential versus Joe Flacco being only plus 10. The lack of turnovers that he had, the point differential in each individual game that he won. Like, those things suggest that the Browns have an easier time winning football games when Deshaun Watson is in there. So if you're going to make the assumption that Deshaun Watson makes the team worse, and that's going to be the backbone of your argument on why the Browns are a sub 500 team, it's not a good argument, right? Like, that's all I want, right? I don't really require anybody to say anything positive about a team I care about. I just care that whatever you say is rooted in reality. Not what you want to be true, but what is true and why you feel that way. I'm not going to come on here and tell lies about teams I don't like just to make myself feel better for a quick second. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't think the Steelers are going to be 500. They're going to be 500. I think that because Mike Tomlin has proven that that's an assumption you should not go against in his entire tenure. I think the Bengals are going to be good too. I know a lot of people are dunking on the Bengals, still think they're going to be good. Now, if they don't figure out this Trey Hendrickson thing, things can get interesting for them, but they're still going to be a good team. They're probably the surest bet in all of this division, right? I think Cleveland and Baltimore, you know, they're not the surest bets. They should be good, but I think there are things that could go wrong for them that would make them slightly underperform. Where Cincinnati, I think they're going to win 11 games no matter what. Unless Joe Burrow gets hurt. That's all I want, right? I don't want you to say that the Browns are going to win. Like, if you said the Browns are going to go 14-2, but you had like nonsense, or not 14-2, it's 14-3. If you said the Browns are going to go 14-3, but it was just like straight up nonsense supporting that argument, I wouldn't like that either. Like, I don't want people to just say stuff to say it. Like, have a reason to say it and back it up with some kind of information that is not just about how you feel. Like, that's all. That's all. You know, I'm not mad if there is a well-formulated take saying the Browns ain't going to be good. You know, it's just, is the take well-formulated? That's the question that I always have. The next question comes from Anthony Henry, who says, what is your feeling on the offensive players missing OTAs with it being a new offense being installed? I mean, like, look, I'm never going to be the one to get angry about somebody missing OTAs. One, and this is like the most important thing we should all keep in mind. You don't know these people and you don't know why they're not at OTAs, right? Like, especially somebody like Elijah Moore, who's a bit more obscure. I don't know why he's missing OTAs. And since I don't, it's not really my place to criticize whether he's at it. And I think that's fair. Like, I'm not going to criticize OTA attendance. I'm not going to throw that into my analysis of the season because I don't think it matters that much. Like, what they do right now is more of an introductory thing, but let's be real about it. The meat and potatoes of this process happens, one, on your own time during the off season when you're studying the playbook in your free time, which I imagine every professional on that team is doing. And then in camp, OTAs are fun for us. It's the first time we get to see some of these guys back in the building, and I appreciate it as far as the entertainment value that it adds to covering the team and to getting a look at the team. But I'm not about to sit here and scorn people for not showing up to something that's ultimately voluntary, right? For them, and they can make up within a week or two. And again, Elijah Moore might be working back off an injury or something like that. Like, he might have a legitimate reason not to be there. And unless I know otherwise, like, unless like he's like doing something irresponsible, then I have no reason to criticize him for not being at a voluntary OTA. And I find commentary that harps on that too much to just be played out. Like, y'all really want another person getting mad about OTAs? Like, that stuff ain't played out to y'all? It's played out to me. Bray says, hey Q, Myles Garrett over his career has always had amazing starts to the season, but at the end of the season always seems like his sack production falls off. We know the defense wins championships. Without Myles Garrett changing this trend, I believe it will be tough for the Browns to win it all. What do you think Myles can do to change the trend so come playoff time he can be dominant? This is one of those narratives that exist that I'm not like 100% sure lives in facts, because you can say his sack production dips off, but like his impact on the game doesn't dip off at the end of the season. The only times you can really say that actually definitively happened with Myles Garrett were when he was injured, coming back from COVID, or suspended. Right? Like, those are the 3 years where people give him hell for dipping off at the end of the season, right? 2020, he came back from COVID. He was not really the same player he was before he got COVID. And that really had an effect on the season. 2019, he had a bad second half of the season because he got suspended for the second half of the season because he smacked Mason Rudolph in the head with the helmet. But other than that, his production at the end of the year hasn't been that bad. This year, he didn't get as many sacks at the end of the year, but it's obvious why that happened to me, because teams just decided to play keep away from Myles Garrett. And that's just something that's going to happen with Myles. Myles is a unique talent, unlike anybody else in the NFL, where teams have decided they're just going to play keep away from him when the games become too important to lose, right? And when do the games become too important to lose? When do teams want to take less risk with how they protect against Myles Garrett? It's usually at the end of the season. And I think it's more or less teams just wanting to play keep away. Anybody but Myles Garrett get a pressure, right? Anybody but Myles Garrett get a sack. So I think that has more to do with it than a production drop off or a drop off in his impact on the game. So I don't know if I really buy into that narrative with Myles Garrett. But that's going to be it for Q&A. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.